Right, I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about binge drinking and how we help you stop binge drinking. Now, some people drink excessively because they're shy and they have a couple of drinks that makes them feel better, and then they find themselves swept along in a tide of excessive drinking. Other people drink nothing during the week in terms of alcohol, and then go out on Friday or Saturday night and then get absolutely blitzed. The difference between someone who binge drinks and someone who doesn't is what they expect. Now, if you're a binge drinker, let's take a group of people that go out every Friday night. One of them binge drinks, always gets absolutely trashed. Another one of them doesn't. Goes out, has 2 or 3 drinks with his friends, has a good time, goes home. Now, the difference between these two people is if you sit them down on the Friday lunchtime and say, what do you think is going to happen tonight? The binge drinker will give you one of the following types of answer. He'll say, it could be a she, but we'll say he. He'll say, well, I expect I'll get trashed. Yippee, it's Friday. I'm looking forward to it. Or he'll say, well, I hope I don't get drunk again tonight. If I do it again, my partner's going to kill me. Or he'll say, oh, it's Friday. I'm going out. I hope, I'm getting a bit old for this now. He'll either expect to do it, hope he won't do it, be afraid of it, wish he didn't do it. In every single case, he'll be thinking about doing it. The person who goes out and has 2 or 3 drinks and goes home, when you ask him or her, what are you doing tonight? They'll say, I'm going out for 2 or 3 drinks with my friends. They don't expect to get drunk. They don't hope they're not going to get drunk. They don't worry about it. They don't think about it. So the cure for binge drinking is to get the person who binge drinks to think like the person who doesn't. But how do you get someone to not think something when you can't not think of an elephant or whatever, or Elvis? Well, there are lots of good NLP techniques for this. To automatically distance the thoughts that have been bothering you and to begin to build in the imagination the kind of thought that leads you towards where you want to go. This is about where you're going, not where you don't want to be. I saw a classic example of this a few years ago. A man came to see me and he was about late 30s, 38. He'd been a trader in the city of London when he was younger, made loads of money, and they all went out on Thursday and Friday night and got really drunk. And it didn't matter too much when he was 19, but now he's 38, 39, and with a couple of children, a very, very upset wife, and a really successful company. He didn't drink alcohol at all, except Friday nights, where he would go out and get utterly drunk to the point where often he wouldn't even return till Sunday. He wouldn't know where he was. His friends looked after him, dumped him in a hotel every time. So he came in. I said, well, what do you want? He said, I want to not binge drink. I said, I don't care what you don't want. What do you want? And he was late. I had just half an hour to work with him. So I said to him, I'm going to have to do this differently. I haven't got time to do all the things I normally do. I'm going to go direct. We're going to play a game. I said, I'm going to ask you what you want. And you are only allowed to tell me 3 times what it is you don't want. And if you say anything else after that, in terms of what you don't want, I'm going to shout at you. And he said, what good's that going to do? I said, look, you're late. You want to talk about it, or should we just get on with it? They said, oh, all right. I said, so what? And that week, he wasn't going out on Friday. He had his big Saturday summer barbecue thing, which wasn't just a couple of people coming around. It was 300 or 400 people, big bands, And so his wife had said to him, you get drunk again, like you always have, and that's it. I mean it. It's over. I said, so what do you want to happen on Saturday night? He said, well, I don't want to get drunk. I said, that's one. He said, oh, shit. I said, look, concentrate now. What do you want to happen on Saturday night? And then he thought about it, because he didn't like losing this guy. He said, well, I want to still be able to drink alcohol a bit. I said, well, how much? He said, I don't know, drink an hour, every other hour or something. I said, what, a pint of vodka or something? And he goes, no, beer, maybe a glass of wine. I said, what are you going to do when you get thirsty? He said, well, I'm not going to. I said, that's 2. He said, shut. I said, look, concentrate. Because I wanted to build in his mind the thoughts of what he was going to do, not what he wasn't going to do. So I'm saying to him, well, things are going to happen. Your friends are going to come over and say, well, it's your party. What are you doing? Here's a drink we brought. Why aren't you drinking? What are you going to do when that happens? He said, well, I'm not. I said, that's 3. He said, okay. I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, I'm going to put the drink down and say, I'm okay for now. I'm all right. And then for the next 10, 15 minutes, as I talked through various things that could happen on the Saturday night, he stopped, he was careful, he thought about it, and he told me what he was going to do. And then I got to the point, he was getting more casual. I'm going, so what time are you going to go to bed, do you think? And he said, I don't know, because he'd never been conscious at that time. He'd always been projectile vomiting into a swimming pool by midnight, carried to sleep. I said, well, what time's the party finish? He said, I don't know, 3 o'clock. I said, okay, so how do you want to be when you go to bed? He said, well, not drunk. So I shouted at him really loudly. I surprised him. I jumped up. And he looked terrified, then very cross. And I thought he was going to get angry with me, but he just didn't like losing. I said, how do you want to be? He said, I want to look back. He gathered himself on an evening of, moderate drinking and loads of fun. I said, brilliant. That's exactly what we want you to do. And on Sunday morning, when you wake up, blank look again. Of course, he had never been conscious on Sunday morning. He said, I don't know, I just don't want a hangover. So I shouted at him again. I said, look, you've got to concentrate. This is simply no good. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know. I said, how surprised will your wife be? He said, my wife will be very surprised. And I thought, cool. He said, my wife will be, not would be. So what are you going to do on Sunday? And he had to think about it. He said, I could play with my daughters, because he had 2 daughters. And that was it, session over, half an hour up. Came in the next week, half an hour later again. I said, so what do you want? Because I always ask people that. He said, I want to be able to continue to control my drinking. Can't believe how easy it is. And it is easy when you put your mind to it. You just got to know where you're going. He was a businessman, very successful. I said, do you do deals by thinking about what you don't want? You got these big property deals you do. And he goes, no, I keep focusing on what I do want. I said, well, it's easy when you do that, isn't it? And I spoke to him a year later. He rang me up. I recognized his voice because he's the only person I've ever met, apart from my brother-in-law, who sounds exactly like Prince Charles. And he was in some bar somewhere, and I thought, oh, God, it's him in a bar. I said, you drunk? He goes, no, I'm drinking water, but, I've got a friend who's got a coke addiction or something. And it's easy, isn't it? My life's easy. So I've got drunk twice since I came to see you, but I deliberately did it. They were stag nights and stuff. Thanks for helping me be in control. But I just pointed his mind in the right direction. He's the one that's in control. It's easy when you know how to aim your consciousness at the solution. And these techniques, the NLP techniques in that particular case, and also hypnosis combined, because normally I have more than half an hour to work with somebody, are very, very powerful. And all of us in the team can do this. So do get in touch.